five-time All-Star Marques Johnson.
Alongside Marques Johnson.
What's up, everybody? Hey, this is the Here District, captain of this vessel. And I got my first mate, my number one son, Kris Johnson.
What up? Talk to me.
Holla!
Let it rain, man. Let it rain.
I guess what? We're going back into the show Friday.
Can't pass us all the breakfast.
Can't pass.
Go fight. Welcome, everybody, to the Here District. Marques Johnson.
You're listening to a Bucks Plus audio production on the Bucks Plus Network.
Your weekly pulse on the Milwaukee Bucks, straight from a Bucks legend. This is Here District with Marques Johnson, alongside his son and 1995 NCAA champion, Kris. Here's MJ.
All right, welcome, everybody, to Here District. I'm the captain of this vessel. Got my first mate, Kris Johnson. We are the only two father and sons to win a national championship at the same school. There's been other champions, but they weren't at the same school. And we are so honored to have the number 8 all-time winningest coach in NBA history, NBA champion coach, 2008 with the Boston Celtics. I think his first year with Orlando, he was like coach of the year. I think it was like 41-41, but that's beside the point. Doc Rivers.
Yeah. First of all, I didn't know that nugget about the national title thing.
Yeah, man.
I never knew that.
We're the first 1995, 1975. We were the first 2 LA City players of the year, 1993, 1973. So we hold that distinction. And so, it's something they can never take away from us.
And when you earn something, they can't take it away, no matter what they say.
They can't take it away. And on that vein, and so one of the other distinctions that you hold is becoming the first person in NBA history, talk about fathers and sons, to coach your son Austin.
Yeah.
I mean, what does that mean to you? Just how
it means more now. I can tell you that. It really does, because it's funny. It came up in a meeting, and Dave Wool, who I think you know Marques very well, Dave Wool kept saying, yeah, Austin fits our team. Austin fits our team. And I said, he does, but I'm the coach, and I don't think it works. Yeah. And so it was a tough one for me to take the gamble, because I kind of knew what was going to follow. I thought, unfortunately for Austin, he took the brunt of it, but he did have his best, his career numbers were those 3 years with the Clippers. I mean, if you look at his numbers, Marques, they were unbelievable. And his after his first year, obviously he's a free agent, and the Knicks and a bunch of teams tried to sign him. So, but now when I look back on it, it's just an amazing thing for me to have been able to coach Austin. Austin says the same thing. We were the first, and you can never take that away. Yeah, and it was pretty cool.
Yeah, Doc, people forget. I mean, there's something, and I don't know how much of an outcry it was. He's only on the team because of his dad. I'm sure he heard a lot of that.
Yeah,
and may still hear it. But people forget. Where'd he go? Winter Park High School.
Winter Park, yeah.
Winter Park down there. That was must-see TV. When Austin Rivers, when he came on ESPN, Kris, you remember those days?
One of the coldest mixtapes of all time to this day.
Yeah, it really was.
Remember that mixtape? I mean, just game, big game.
Yeah, and then he was one and done at Duke, right? One and done.
One and done. Made every team you need to make. ACC made the game-winning shot against North Carolina. God, and he was the 8th pick in the draft.
Please.
Eight's a good number, baby. Eight's a good number, man.
That's pretty good.
That's a good thing. Now your other son, Spencer Rivers, an assistant with the Bucks. He was with you in Philadelphia. Well, I mean, are you harder on him? Kris will tell you. I can, from personal experience, dads can sometimes, but in this situation.
Dads are tough, Kris. You know that.
Facts.
But, Austin told me something that I'll never forget. I asked him after the first year. I said, tell me what your thoughts about me coaching you. He said, Dad, I think you're an amazing coach, but I think that you're really harder on me than everyone else. And he said, but what I came to realize is you love me. And if I can't trust you, I can't trust anybody. Yeah. And what it made me think about is if I can get every player to understand that, like I got your back. And that's what Austin kept saying. He's like, I knew you're never going to do anything to hurt me. Yeah. So I was thinking, man, if I can do that for every player, to make them, though I may be hard on them, to understand everything that I'm trying to get you to do is because I love you and I care for you. Then I can be a successful coach. And so that really touched me, and it really helped me.
Well, and I don't think people understand, any dad worth his salt wants to see his kids surpass anything he ever accomplished.
Absolutely.
Now in my case, it gets a little tough. First Wood Award winner, 5-time All-Star, and all that. Like I like to throw in my son's face. I'm a 5-time All-Star. How come you're not listening to me? But at the same time, you want to see them be better than you, and at the same time, it seems like that would bleed over into other guys, your surrogate sons, the guys you coach on your team. You want to see them be the best version of themselves.
Yeah, but as a coach, you have to learn, because though I'm trying to be, it's constructive for me, as a coach. Everything I try to tell a player, I'm trying to help the team be better. I'm trying to help him be better. But we see that as a positive.
Yeah.
The player sometimes hears that as a negative. Why is he always on me? He's always negative. Well, sometimes information is positive, but if you hear it wrong, it can be negative. Yeah. And you have to be very careful on how you deliver it and how much you deliver, because you don't ever want to, as I always use, freeze your player. You want them to keep playing free.
Yeah. Now, Coach of the Year, we talked about in 2008 and 2000, your very first year as a head coach. I remember they tried to lightweight draft you to coach the Spurs when you were doing broadcasting down there. I think Pop started. I think he's 8-12 or something. They started out slow, and you shut that down right away. I've always respected that you kind of shut that down, saying, "Hey, people, chill."
Yeah, I was not having it. It actually put a little strain on me and Pop, because me and Pop were getting along. Now he's hearing this, and you know what? No one knew, and Marques is probably the hardest secret I've ever had to keep. The previous summer, I went down to Orlando with Chuck Daly. Chuck Daly had told me he was going to retire. We sat with John Gabriel, and I knew what my next job was.
Yeah,
I already knew it.
Okay.
And so I'm going through that whole year hearing these rumors. I knew, and first of all, I wasn't ready. Pop is the first guy to offer me a job. To work with him and then become a head coach. And I was like, guys, I need separation. Yeah. And thank God I did all those things, because none of that would have gone well for me.
How close was Tim Duncan?
He was there. He was there.
Was he?
He was there. I'm telling you. The whole story, there's a story that goes around. I've heard Grant Hill say it. It's incorrect. That I told his girlfriend at the time, it became his wife, he couldn't fly on a plane. None of that's true. Okay. Tim told us he was coming. Right. He looked me in the eye and said, "I'm coming. I need to get on the plane and go back to San Antonio and take my visit there." And I called Calipari, because Calipari was the guy, he was the greatest recruiter in college. So I was using him as my advice guy. And I called Cal and said, "Hey, I think we got Duncan. He's coming. He just needs to go back to the Spurs." He said, "Wait a minute. You let him off campus?" And I said, well, yeah. He said, "You just lost him." He said, you cannot let him go back. Yeah. And we did. And David Robinson, they flew David in from Hawaii. Wow. And they really saved the day.
Great story.
So, but it was nuts. What's crazy? A crazier story is we had Tim Duncan for one night. We had Tim Duncan, Trace McGrady, and Grant Hill all commit. But Marques, Kris, we only had money for two.
Yeah. Okay.
And so we're sitting in the office that night thinking, okay, guys, what are we going to do? Who are we going to pick? Yeah. And I'm never going to tell you who we picked. So,
did Coach Cal? So, you remember any of the recruiting trips tips that he gave you?
Yeah. You make it personal to him. Everything's about him, and be extravagant. Because we could
go big. Okay.
Yeah. So we went to Disney. And they did with the big Disney fireworks show they did every night. And in the middle of it said, "Welcome Tim Duncan to the Orlando Magic." I mean, we did everything. We really did our research. But yeah, we didn't get him.
Well, if that would have been Brook Lopez, you'd have had him right there. He'd have signed on the spot.
He'd have signed on the spot.
Yeah. But Doc, let me get your opinion on this, man. And you look at all the great coaches. Pop obviously leads the list. Nelly was a forward. Lenny Wilkens a point guard. Jerry Sloan a shooting guard. Pat Riley small forward. You get down the list. Phil Jackson a power forward. You're a point guard. Larry Brown, Rick Adelman, the top 10 winningest coaches in history. Do you think it's an advantage, or what? What kind of advantage is it to be a point guard and segue into coaching?
I think it's an advantage, and I'm not trying to down myself, but I do think it's also an advantage that you wasn't a great player. I was a good player,
Sure, yeah,
but I don't think if you're a great player that you can have the patience. Because Marques, I'm using you. You guys did things different than most players. I had great vision as a player,
yeah,
but I just wasn't a great player. But it helps me as a coach now. It helps me relate to guys because I was more of a role player. And so as a coach, your job is to really get every single player on your team to buy into roles and
yeah.
playing them. You understand how all that feels. And so, yeah, I do think it's an advantage to being in that position is really an advantage.
And Doc, do you think that your experience as a point guard, NBA point guard, helps you communicate in terms of leadership, in terms of like the intangibles, managing egos? You got to balance
Yes.
people as a PG. Talk about that for a second.
Yeah, it's huge. I think the greatest thing as a point guard, I remember Mike Fratello telling me this, Mr. Rivers, you have to learn the word no quickly. Because if you're not, you got, I had the 1 year with Moses, Reggie Theus,
Wow.
Dominique Wilkins, Kevin Willis.
Dang.
They every play, hey, I'm feeling it. And I used to think, well, oh, y'all can't be feeling it at the same time. So you had to say no, man. You had to.
Yeah.
And it's funny when I got to the Knicks one game as a player. I was on a 2-on-1, and Anthony Mason, who no longer with us, I love him. I went to Patrick Ewing on the break, and Anthony came down and said, "Next time you better throw it to me."
Yeah.
And so I had to go in the timeout and say, "Don't you ever say that to me ever again."
Wow.
You had to be tough as a point guard.
Yeah.
Because God, everybody wants the ball, and you have it.
You said it to
You said
Anthony Mason.
you said that
You
to Mace.
Anthony Mason.
To Mace,
Yeah,
too.
right,
Well,
all right.
I found out later that was not very smart.
Oh, wow, man. And so look, Kris, Doc said there being, humble about his playing abilities. I'm not even looking at notes. I know you were an all-star at least 1 year.
Yeah.
And then we played you guys in 1984. I love this story. One of my favorite Doc Rivers stories, Don Nelson stories. And so we're watching film, and Doc blows by Mike Dunleavy Sr. Nelly's like, "God dang it, Dunleavy, didn't you read the scouting report? Don't let him get to his right hand." 2 possessions later, blows by him again, getting to his right, dunks. "Dang it, Dunleavy, you stupid. Don't let him get to his right hand." 3rd time, same thing, blows by him with his right, lays it up. Nelly just has a cigarette dangling from his mouth and says, "Hell, he's just better than you."
Facts.
Oh, hell, he's just better than you.
Just better than you.
And Doc, do you remember that series, man? How much of that do you remember? You guys, we beat you 2 in Milwaukee, you beat us 2 in Atlanta. That thing was nuts.
That was
bolts,
a hell
man.
of a series, man. I remember that well. And then you guys beat us Game 5 in Atlanta. I don't know if you remember Game 5, Marques. It was like half full. It wasn't sold out for a final because I was back in the first round were Game 5s. And just dealing with you and Sidney Moncrief.
Yeah.
Thinking y'all were good. It's funny. I used to jokingly call you guys the Phil Mickelson of Tiger Woods. Like, you know what I mean by that?
Right. Great, but not just quite good enough. Yeah.
Really good, and you would have been great if one of the greatest Boston teams in history,
or Sixer teams, and Moses with Doc. That made it unfair.
You guys played against 2 of the greatest teams in the history of the game, and unfortunately, if they're not there, you win a title. I mean, it's amazing what happens.
Yeah, and other quick story, Dan Ralph, Kris, Don Nelson told us, look, you guys got to fight somebody tonight. Somebody's got to get into a fight. I'm paying all fines, and I'm not a fighter. I'm a lover. I'm not a fighter. And me and Dan Ralph were cool, but he pushed me in the back of something, and I'm running down court. I'm saying, this is my opportunity. I run into him, Kris, full speed, give a forearm in the back. He turns around with his fist balled up. I ball up my fist. Dan looks at me and says, "Marques, I thought we was cool, man. I thought we was cool." I'm like, "Yeah, Dan, we cool. My bad, man. I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry, man. We cool, man. I love Dan, the late Dan Roundfield."
Yeah, Marcus, that was a good business decision by you too.
Yeah.
Why are you picking? That's the one guy you don't want to fight on that team.
Yeah. That had a temporary insanity, man.
Yeah.
But that's funny, man. But listen, man. Let's talk about the Milwaukee Bucks and where we are
Yeah.
right now. We're coming out of the All-Star break, home stretch. We've got some new personnel in. So how do you figure this out? Is this an organic thing, or is it something you got an idea in your mind about how you're going to deal with the rotation? Give us some insight on that, Doc.
That was a good question. Remember Chuck Daly telling me years ago, sometimes you have to wait on the team, and
Yeah,
sometimes you got to go grab them. We have 29 games. This is a grab situation. It really is, Marcus, because we had so many injuries the first half. We didn't play enough with our core guys. When Kris was here, we never really had the chance to see how Kris, Giannis, and Dame work because they were never healthy. And now we have Kuz here, and we want to get this thing going. Obviously health is health, and you can't predict it. But we're going to force that group together more in the second half because the other teams, the advantage that Boston has is they've been together, and so their execution is more flawless than ours. Cleveland's been together really when you think about it as well.
yeah.
The Knicks, added Townsend, but other than that, they've been together. So we really have to play catch up, and we have to do it through games played and to probably more practicing, which is a dirty word in the NBA now,
Yeah.
But I think we're going to have to do that.
And
Doc,
looking at the schedule, you have some opportunities to practice. You have more some adequate practice time. You think?
Not enough. I will say that. I mean, you think about it. We start out I think 5 out of 7 out of the break.
Okay.
So we went hard today, like hard. You can see. I was looking at Dame once, and he was like, "Okay, this is it is longer than I anticipated." But I think we just have to do it. I talked to the guys about it, and listen. The other key is Giannis. The last 2 years has not played the playoffs.
True.
I know that, and I'm not saying unfortunately Giannis knows that, but Giannis knows that.
Yeah.
And so we have to be very smart how we play him. Because without him, we're not winning.
Yeah.
That I know. And with him, I think we can beat anybody.
Yeah. I thought it was smart of him, Doc, to shut himself down during the All-Star break. Chris, jump in
Yes.
after this, but yeah, that was a great move. Chris, go ahead.
I was just curious, Doc, being in the situation you're in, you say 29 games left with such a veteran-laden roster, how do you continue to foster the growth in the young players while continuing to prioritize your championship urgency?
Yeah, because we need them, number one, Chris, and it's a great question. But also, I always go back to the year we won it. I remember Red Auerbach always talked about the push-pull principle of young and old. He's like, the old guys pull the young guys along. The young guys push the old guys to get going.
Yes, sir.
And so that's what I'm going to try to do. I mean, we have some hungry young guys. And now, you bring in Scoot, who was KPJ. We bring him and he's young.
Yeah.
And he's hungry,
Good. And he's
good, as we saw in the Minnesota game. So it's really going to be good. Today I challenged the second unit because we had a scrimmage. And I challenged the second unit. I say, every time you're on the floor with the first unit, try to beat them.
Yeah.
I said, try to beat them. Don't take their autographs. We know Giannis is great. And I said it in front of the whole team. And Dane, we know you're great. I said, but KPJ, try to go at Dame every day. Bobby, try to go at Giannis every day. And I said, we need this. We need the competition. And today they did, but the first unit won anyway. By one. Dame made the big three. So
that's
it was great.
That's what you want, man.
Yeah.
So you mentioned the Celtics and Red Auerbach. I'm thinking, and I probably will pronounce this wrong, but Desmond Tutu's principle of Ubuntu, about being stronger together.
Yeah.
I don't know the exact meaning, but is that something that you've had to pull out during the years, or is it something that's kind of a one and done?
It's a one and done. I use the principles for my life, though. A person is a person through other people. Yes. I can't be all I can be unless you are all you can be. I can never be threatened by the stardom and greatness of anybody, because the greater he is, the better I am. And it's such a profound meaning. Yeah. It's a way of life for people in Africa. And it's really, Desmond Tutu kind of brought it along, but it's a word that we all should use, especially right now.
Yeah, yeah. And then finally, Doc, before we let you go, the state of the league right now, and this is my take on it, Doc. It's almost like, how old are you? You're 63?
63.
You're a young man, young fella.
I think I'm 63.
Yeah,
I don't even know.
But so you may have missed the black exploitation era films and Shaft and Superfly.
Oh no, Shaft, Coffee.
Okay,
Come on.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So and that was, and especially the Mac with Max
Yes.
Julian Goldie.
Yeah.
But my thing is this: there was such an outcry about the black exploitation films to the point where they were extinct. They just were wiped from the face of the earth because people were talking about the imagery and all that. Even though you
stereotypes,
had but you had the Clint Eastwood spaghetti western, Hang 'em High. That was stereotypical as all get out. The point is, working actors and directors and writers left out in the cold. The NBA seems like there's a cannibalization going on with former players. Some of them, media, fans talking about what's wrong with the game, and the game is. I mean, what's your take on it? I don't like the direction this is headed, Doc, and I don't know what the solution is, but I'd love to hear what you feel about that.
I love our game, and I think we have the best athletes we've ever had in our game. I don't like the negative talk about the game, but I think some of it is warranted. Marques, and I hate to go over the old days, but we didn't need a new format for the All-Star game because everybody competed. The one game I played in, I remember at halftime, Michael Jordan walked in at halftime. He was in Chicago, and he says, "Hey, I don't lose at home. I don't lose at home." And he says, and Michael Tiller was the coach. He said, "Coach, I don't care who you play, but if they ain't competing, take them out." And then he turned around and says, "I am not losing a home game."
Right.
And this is him standing in the middle of the locker room.
Yeah.
And, it was great for me because that meant defense. I was like, oh, I'm playing in the second half. That's how I thought about it. So that, competition is competition, Marques. I think guys are more skilled. I don't think we practice enough, and I don't think we're taught enough how to win because we don't practice enough. And I think that has hurt our game some. I think we got to get back to doing that.
Yeah. And then the final question, Doc, and this is another one of my convoluted thoughts, not really an idea or concept, but my son Josiah works with Gilbert Arenas, and one of the things Gilbert talked about is when they relaxed the physicality of the game, it allowed the European players to flourish. But now I take it a step further, Doc. I think because they relaxed the physicality, now guys can play into their late 30s. When we played, once you got 34, 35, the toll of the game had beaten your body down so much. I mean, it was done. But now we've got LeBron at 40 and Chris Paul at 39 and Steph and Kevin Durant and Russell at 36. But not just playing, but all-stars. Dominating.
Yeah.
I don't know. Any thoughts on that, man?
Yeah, the courts are better. We played on basketball courts laid on cement. The courts are better. The shoes are better. I had two coaches as my assistant coaches. One trainer, and the trainer so everything's better. So they're playing longer, and I do think the freedom of movement is good for the game. I think they still should call it a little rougher. I thought they did that last year, and it was so funny because my daughter's married into the Curry family, and we have these debates, and they're hot because it's Dale and I against Steph, Austin, and
old school, new school.
I love it.
And it's so good because they were talking about, we could score just like we don't care about the physical. And then last year, right when the physicality went, scoring dropped.
Yeah,
and I had a Zoom call. I was like, we have proof now. We have proof that it's harder to score when it's more physical. It is. But it still was good. And I agree, Marques, I don't agree with Gilbert that they did it for that reason. I think they wanted – Phil Jackson was the champion of it. He was pushing more freedom of movement, mainly because he went through that Chicago-New York series. And he was like, this is a bloodbath. And he was probably right. So I like them both.
We know you got a lot of stuff to figure out and things to do. Did you ever think in your wildest dreams that the Detroit Pistons from the last couple of years would be breathing down your neck for that?
No,
I
man.
mean, that's crazy, man.
They're
Yeah,
playing so well. And it's
yeah,
funny, Cade, man. Cade is becoming
yeah,
one of the better players in our
yeah,
league, and he's doing
yeah,
it far quicker than anybody. So good for them. Really good for JB because getting fired in Cleveland and watching them do what they're doing, and
right.
now he's in Detroit having his own success. So I'm really happy for him. Just not too
Yeah,
happy.
yeah. And it's funny. We got the Pacers kind of close together in March. We got the Pistons back to back, the final
Yeah,
two games of the
yeah.
season. So the plot thickens, man. The drama could be
Yeah, those are going to
all.
be hard games. And before the season, you were looking at that. Okay, maybe we out. That might
Yeah.
decide playoff seeding. You really
Yeah,
may,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. I mean, I took that last Piston game off. I gave it to Steve Novak. I'm like, yeah.
yeah.
That won't. It won't mean anything. It won't
Now
matter.
you
So
want
I'll
it
just,
back.
I'll get a week start on that play-in vacation week. So look, Doc, man, let you get back to work, man. We appreciate you so much, and I'll see you soon. I'll see you in Washington against the Wizards. But good luck for the games coming up this weekend, man. All right. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys. Nice
All right.
seeing you.
Appreciate
Thanks,
you.
Doc.
Take care.
All right, welcome back here, District. We want to thank Glenn Doc Rivers. And man, I meant to get into that nickname, how he was picked to play against some pros at a Marquette camp as a freshman in high school. Had on a Dr. J T-shirt, and they needed another body to run against the Milwaukee Bucks pros that showed up for the camp. And Al McGuire, Rick Majerus, somebody said, "Hey, Doc, get in there." Not because he was this great dunker, but because he had on the T-shirt. So
That's funny.
that's a great story. But listen, man, and Doc and I, we touched on this, Chris, and I want to follow up with you. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, man. But I'm, and I hate to be the canary in the coal mine. You know what that story is about, Chris, the canary in the coal mine?
No.
Okay, so coal miners, there's some gas leaks down there and all that. So they bring a canary down there, and then once the canary died, they knew that the gas was coming. They couldn't smell it themselves, but
Wow.
it would impact the. So that was always
animal cruelty.
Well, yeah, but it was always a precursor to danger for the coal miners down there.
Okay.
So when that canary died, it's time to get out of there. So
Canary.
that always signaled that that it's danger time.
Okay.
When the canary stopped singing, it's like it's time for us to shake the spot. So again, I'm the canary in the coal mine. But man, Chris, there's so much criticism of the product, the
Right.
NBA product. So
Right.
much criticism, and not just the All-Star game, which to his credit, Adam Silver and the powers that be tried to spruce things up with the 4 different teams. Did you like that format, first of all, during All-Star weekend?
Well, no, I mean, not really. I'm
Yeah.
I'm kind of a traditionalist where I like the old school basic format, West, East, whatever, 12,
Yeah.
15 guys, name the guys. This was a little confusing. It was a little bit difficult to understand, but I understand the concept, right? You're bringing in like different demographics of players to bring in different demographics of audiences, but I just don't think it resonated like the league thought it would.
Yeah, and so for me, man, it's like kind of like Draymond said. It's you got that Candace Parker team, I believe, but that one team with the young players that they're playing in the All-Star game. They're competing in the All-Star game, and you've denied. And someone mentioned, which I think is a good idea, or would have been a good idea, to have the all-snub team, have Norman Powell and the guys that were snubbed, have that team of borderline All-Stars.
That would have
on the
been
team.
more exciting than I think of something to watch, because now and you put something on it, and you put a 200,000, 100,000, whatever. So the guy, but you're going to see a more competitive product. I mean, I don't know, man. I think that it's tough for the league's in an interesting position right now.
Yeah.
And you kind of talked about, we talked about this Faustian bargain and black exploitation and kind of duality. Black exploitation, you had representation, but criticized for stereotypes. Now in the NBA, it's a little similar where you have something, they're praised for inclusivity, but then they're criticized for softness and all this other stuff. So it's just a weird time. I think that fans need to get back to basics and try to enjoy the essence of the NBA, which is high-level skill sets. And, that's the essence of what the league is to me. All this other stuff is just getting convoluted, my man. I mean, we're talking about a bunch of BS. We're getting too anal, too overly invested in stuff. It's like we're picking every little thing apart. What happened to the basketball?
Well, and here's my thing. I'm old school. We all know that. That's my Twitter/X moniker, old school 888. But there's nothing new under the sun. You know, the more things change, the more they remain the same. I remember when I played, I had a teammate, Brian Winters, who told me, Kris, my rookie year, he said, look, the way you play, you're averaging almost 11 rebounds a game, 20 points a game as a rookie, playing 35, 37 minutes a game. Take some time off. Just give them 75 games, 75 to 77 games, and they'll be happy. That was his advice to me back in 1977 as a rookie. And so it was load management before load management, but it made sense. But now people are up in arms. And look, you know, I get it. I get it. These guys are getting paid exponentially more money than I made $100,000 my first contract, and thought I was like Bill Gates. You know, thought I was Steve Ballmer. You know, but well, I'm saying, well, it didn't suck then. Trust me, it was.
No, but just compare. But when you think about like how much guys get now, I mean, that's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. I was able to get my 300 turbo diesel Benz on diesel fuel, and I didn't realize that diesel fuel was really hard to find back in those days. So it was like an electric car where I had to map out my trips and where I was going. But anyway, the other thing that it reminds me of. Speaking of old school, the black films of the 70s, Superfly, Shaft, The Mac, Doc talked about being a big fan of those, but there was so much criticism. And Kris, I would go down to the Baldwin Theater. You may not remember the Baldwin Theater, or Coliseum in La Brea. The Baldwin Theater, every Saturday night, Saturday afternoon for a matinee, all these great movies where you're seeing black actors and black writers and black directors, Sounder and Gordon Parks Jr. and all these great films. That I was really entertained by. Now, you look at them now, and they're dated, obviously, but Cooley High still stands up. We watch Cooley High together, right? Coach East. But anyway, there was so much criticism, Kris, like with the NBA, that all of a sudden they became extinct. Right. And I'm just concerned that all this negativity, I know the league is trying to address it, trying to alter, make things happen, but I'm just concerned, man, that with all the negativity coming from all kinds of different directions, the game will be hurt. Chris Haynes talked about it when we had him on the show last week. Yeah. You know, that the players have to take more responsibility and accountability, but I don't know what the solution is, but there is concern.
Yeah, and last thing on that, I mean, I think the bottom line, it's like, you know, when you're juxtaposing the black exploitation area, style over substance, was what pretty much that era was critiqued for. The films weren't that good, but it was snazzy, it was jazzy. My question is, can the league in its current form, can it sustain like its top billing, its marquee, when you get, you know, guys are resting on the biggest games of the year on national TV? Like, think about it. Think about how many times in the last, 2 or 3 years, big time stars have set out major nationally televised matchups to the chagrin of fans, and to where they're talking about it the next day. Stephen A. and all these guys are like, why didn't this guy play? I think that is the single biggest issue. At the end of the day, a fan, if we pay somebody $50 million, we want to see 82 games, period. And I don't care about the quantitative reasonings and all these, you know, physical therapy guys that talk about load management and how this contributes to this and that. A fan that's paying hard-earned money needs to get his money's worth. And I think once the league solves that issue, we're not going to have no more problems with all this other stuff, because you're gypping the fans.
Yeah, but that started. It didn't start, but where it really came into focus was Greg Popovich used to do that with Tim Duncan and Tony Parker. He would sit them out of like the Channel 7 Sunday game of the week, you know, and almost kind of thumbing his nose at the league, and at the same time resting his players. So I mean, that's my point, that it's more attention on it right now. It's more focus on it now, and that's what's kind of driving the conversation, driving the narrative these days.
But you got to think about the lead up. So when Pop was doing that, right, that had kind of these residual effects that are felt years later. Because not only did Pop and them do it, other teams start copycatting and do it. Well, Pop can do it, we can do it. And so that's what I mean. Like Pop and them definitely started that. They got it off. But there's like a wave of collateral damage that has caused to the fan viewership and people's interest in the NBA.
Yeah, and I'll end it on this story. I could remember We're playing the Sixers at home. It's a sellout, man. The fans are rabid. Dr. J and Bobby Jones and Moses Malone. This regular season game, not a playoff game.
Okay.
But I'm hurt. Brian Winters is hurt. I think Sidney Moncrief might have been hurt.
Jeez.
And so we're all walking out to the court, and I won't name the executive, but I turned to the executive. And I was like, man, this is tough, man. The fans are here. They want to see us play, and we can't play against the Sixers tonight. This is a tough situation. And the executive said, F them. It's a sellout.
Oh.
And bottom line, good. That's his job. And the game sold out, so whatever happens after that, not on me. All right, man. Let's get to the mailbag, man. That's a good conversation. The game, I'm not the canary coal mine kind of level right now, but man, it's just it's concerning me. There's so much. You're on Twitter and all these other, and you're seeing all this negativity and how I don't watch the game. The game sucks. Something needs to be done about the game. And as Doc Rivers talked about, these athletes, man, the way the game has evolved, people don't, like you said, people don't appreciate, the evolution of the game, where it is today. And people say, well, the guys were better in your day. That's bullcrap.
Yeah.
The guys are so much exponentially better. Their skill level, everything else they do is better because they work at it. You don't drop out of bed and become this Dame Lillard 3-point shooting, separation, sidestep specialist, just waking up one day deciding you're going to do it. That's hard work for years and years they put into honing their skills. I've watched Giannis become a guy who was a borderline all-star when I first got here 10, 11 years ago to a guy who is now one of the top 2 or 3 players in the world. So that's my rant. So mailbag time, bro. Let's go.
Yeah, and before we get to the mailbag, I wanted to remind our viewers that they can watch Here District on the Bucks YouTube channel. Subscribe to the Milwaukee Bucks YouTube channel for Here District episodes. You can listen on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast. Bucks Plus Audio. Here District is in the building. And now for Marques's mailbag, baby. This week's installment. The question is from Turner Tracy at TTT Tracy24. How will the Bucks guard rotation pan out, MJ?
Lots of great options. Well, look, God, that is a tough question. I pulled up some numbers. And if you look at the analytics about who's playing well, out of that foursome, the guy that's actually has the most impressive differential when you subtract the offensive rating when he's on the floor versus the defensive rating, effective field goal percentage, both offense and defense, AJ Green. AJ Green's numbers in terms of just pure analytics, he's a plus 3.3 in the differential. That's 71st percentile. Effective field goal percentage when he's on the floor offensively is at 90%. Effective field goal percentage when defensively when he's on the floor, the opponent is 52.5%, 82nd. I mean, he's doing, and as good as Andre Jackson is, his differential is a minus 2.8 around the 40th percentile. Right. And again, that's not all on him. That's circumstances and combinations. A lot of that is who he's with. So, but my point is so that being said, it's going to be hard. All that being said, it's going to be hard to keep Gary Trent Jr. off the floor. If he continues to play with the attitude, the renewed sense of confidence, shoot the ball as well as he shot the ball. So Doc Rivers, and then Kevin Porter Jr. I know you like him. I love him. He's a guy that the last game of the season before the All-Star break against Minnesota made some big plays and just showed kind of what his length and athleticism brings in terms of aesthetically. I'm into the aesthetics, him and Kyle Kuzma.
But also what they bring in terms of like value, in terms of skill set, MJ. Like what you're talking about, how they look, the ability to handle the ball, to break guys down one-on-one, the running of Kuzma in transition, live off the pick and roll. Like these are modern day NBA skill sets that we haven't, the Bucks have not had 2 guys like this, on the roster this season. So the roster, and Doc talked about, hitting the ground running, right? Stepping everything up. Iron sharpens iron is what he was getting at when I asked him the question about, are the young players roles, will they basically be minimized now that we're in the second half of the season? You got to try to win something. He's like, nah. Yeah. He's from the Red Auerbach school of push-pull. And my opinion, I think that this rotation, I think Gary Trent Jr., AJ Green, KPJ, and then you're going to have, I think Ajax, I mean, I don't know. it's just interesting. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with Ajax. Like, are you still going to go with the Ajax on the defensive end, his defensive value, and keep sacrificing the offensive inefficiency?
Well, I think what Ajax and what the Bucks have been doing, I think is really, really interesting and smart. I mean, they got a concept terminology called the head of the snake. So they put Ajax on whoever that best offensive player is, whether it's a point guard, small forward, shooting guard. Yeah. He starts out on that best offensive player to start the game. Good. So that guy doesn't get a rhythm. He bumps him, he denies him, picks him up 94 feet. And then he may not play again until the third or fourth quarter at times. He may play 12 minutes for the entire game, but they're using him as kind of that rabbit, that pace setter at the beginning, which I think is not a bad approach. So Yep. But just for you nerds out there, you numbers crunchers, the top differential 5-man unit for the Bucks, plus 29.1 is Damian Lillard, AJ Green, Taurean Prince, Giannis, and Brook. So just for those of you who wants to know what the numbers say in terms of collectively, which unit is producing the highest efficiency rate, it's that crew. So that's it. You got something else, or we can move on to the next question? One more question. Let's do this.
From B. Harms, what is something we should track on the Bucks in the last third of the season that would give us hope in a long playoff run? Offensive rebound and turnover differential stands out to me. What are your stats? What are your stats that you track, MJ, that give you sort of, a good gauge on where the Bucks have been? You've been around these guys for a while now. So what is something that you use?
Yeah, well, see, offensive rebounding, this team is never going to be, I don't think, a team that's going to make any hay offensive rebounding. You look at some of the numbers. I mean, they are in the one combination, Brook, Dame, and AJ. They're 17.5% offensive rebound percentage. That's in the 0%. That's in the zeroth percentile. The other that's combinations are 25th to 35th percent. Even their best. So I don't think you look at that. Taking care of the basketball, and the Bucks are one of the best teams in the league at turnover rate in terms of them taking care of the ball. Now, conversely, they're not going to force turnovers. This is not what this team does. If you look at the numbers, they are down at the bottom in terms of forcing turnovers, points off of turnovers. That's not how this Doc Rivers iteration of the Milwaukee Bucks is going to play the game. Now, with Kevin Porter Jr., Kyle Kuzma, more length, more quickness, can you offset some of that and force some more turnovers? We shall see. So for me, it's about the shooting numbers. It's about the effective field goal percentage. It's about maintaining a high rate of the second best 3-point percentage in the league. Go ahead.
But Em, not to interrupt you, but on your point about these stats, right? What about the fact that the Bucks, as far as 3-point attempted, corner 3 frequency, those are stats they don't rank too high in. Do you think that this is going to be a situation where second half of the season there's going to be a more concerted effort to get more threes up? And defensively, despite Bucks being top 11th in the league, are we going to continue to see the Brook Lopez, the drop coverage situation, or because we got more athletes now, are we going to start switching a lot of stuff and just sticking with stuff? And you know what I'm saying? Like, is there going to be a change in philosophy offensively or defensively from the areas that I just said? Do you think?
Well, that a change in philosophy is precipitated by the skill and the kind of players you have at your disposal.
Yeah.
And so now you can go small with Giannis at the 5 and Kuzma at the 4 and Taurean Prince at the 3 and KP Jr., for example, in a closing game unit. Dame, now you can switch out there 1 through 4, man. Even Dame in certain situations, and as you look at the Celtics, some of these other heavy switch team. I think the Timberwolves. I'm just trying to think of teams off the top of my head, but all these great defensive teams do a lot of switching, and what that does is, and you talked about corner threes for the Bucks. There's been a big emphasis by Doc Rivers and staff on getting a piece of the paint as often as you possibly can. All their offensive actions are kind of designed to get that piece of the paint. Now you get the defense to collapse. Now you can kick it out to those open shooters. When a team switches, as you know, the driving lanes are few and far between teams. So it's that great cat and mouse game that these outstanding coaching staffs and basketball minds have to continually try to parse and stay ahead of, the offense has got to stay ahead of the D. They catch up. Now the defense has got to figure out some things to do to stay ahead of the offense. And so, but I think as long as the Bucks can continue to, Gary Trent Jr. has been off the hook, AJ Green, Taurean Prince, and we got 3 of the top 12 to 13 3-point shooters in the league. Our 3-point percentage is top 3. We're taking I think a requisite amount of threes per game. I would like to see that amount go up even more. But it's a 3-point shooting game right now when you've got the guys that can deliver. And I think the Bucks have guys that can deliver.
And for the final question of the day from @Sage_Alex, is there any difference between the way you see the game as a broadcaster versus how you saw the game as a player? And if so, what was the hardest adjustment that you had to make broadcasting?
Well, for as a broadcaster, you have to see everything. You have to see what's going on away from the ball. That's why I'm big on film and watching tendencies and studying film and studying analytics and getting a vision in my mind of how a game is going to play out just based on stats and these miscellaneous stats at NBA.com in terms of points off turnovers and second chance points and points in the paint. I mean, I love those. Everybody talks about the 4 factors. Like that's the thing that delineates the wins and the losses. I'm just as big. I mean, when Coach Bud was here, we dominated, points in the paint both ways, not giving up fast break points. Our opponent free throw rate was always top 1 or 2 in the league. And that was a Popovich thing. You look at the Spurs now, the Spurs are number 1 in the league in free throw rate. So that becomes a way of life as a defense, playing great defense, aggressive defense without fouling. And so, that's an area that we need to improve on with this basketball team. So that for me was the toughest thing. Is just, as a player, you kind of in your own little world out there and focusing on what you do as a thinking about how I'm going to take a guy, thinking about what a guy's strengths are if I'm playing defense. As a broadcaster, it's just seeing the big picture, more big picture stuff and seeing the minutia and the small things and the minor things out on the floor that could turn out to be huge kind of plays in the long run if not addressed properly by the opposing coach. So those are the kinds of things that make it interesting, and I enjoy it. I enjoy it, and I enjoy the product. I of course, it can be improved, but I still think it's the greatest game in the world. And I think that Christmas Day extravaganza that we had with all those close games was a precursor, showed us exactly what this league could be when guys are competing on the big stage like that. So,
and we enjoy listening to you talk about the game. You and Lisa, whoever, Dave Kane, whoever you're working with, it's always a pleasure. You still have that same unbridled joy and excitement for the NBA product, which is what we love about you, MJ.
The greatest game in the world, man. I love it. All right, man. Well, love working with you. Loved Doc Rivers stopping by for a few minutes, chatting with us. I love Doc, man. Doc, I met Doc my first time. He was a freshman coming into Marquette. We played at the University High School, this dilapidated gym that had the greatest, softest floor for jumping of any gym I've ever played in. But the gym was a barn, old, torn down barn. Yeah. And Doc came out his first time, man, and I knew he was special then. Not only as a player, but just as a people person.
High level person.
He's just a high level dude, man. And I'm just so happy we got him here in Milwaukee. All right, man. Here, District. Great show.
Yes,
We're out of here.
Peace.
This has been a Bucks Plus audio production.